What's going on, y'all? So in today's video, I'm just about to be basically breaking down some game, some things that I didn't necessarily have a lot of people telling me, some things that I had to go and research on my own, like read books, podcasts, etc. So let's get straight into it. So part one is everybody wants purpose until they realize it comes with a level of loneliness. It comes with a period of isolation, right? Now, the very first section of this is the loneliness before alignment, right? A lot of people view these spaces as something's going wrong. A lot of people view it as, your life is crumbling. When your girl or your dude start leaving you all of a sudden, when, your friends start, acting funny and you start realizing, it in the back of your head, you need new friends, but you don't have the confidence or the self-esteem in yourself to actually take action. Yeah, those periods. Sometimes it shows you losing jobs. The things that you had attachments to is going to be stripped from you. And, in very potent seasons where you're meant to be, elevating crazily or, going on to a next chapter or learning a new lesson, sometimes you're going to be isolated from your passions. You're going to feel isolated from your creativity. Now, that right there is something that makes a lot of people feel very anxious and depressed. I wrote down in my journal, and I don't believe I made a post about this yet, but I was like, if you separate somebody from their native abilities, they're going to feel depressed. They're going to feel like a sense of heartache. What do I mean by that? If you separate an artist from their art, they're going to feel sad. They're going to feel depressed. They're going to feel overstimulated, right? If you separate a businessman from the business world, he's going to start feeling self-doubt. He's going to start doubting his abilities, and this is why it's very important to know yourself, because if you're not doing what you were called on this planet to do, you're going to feel isolated. You're going to feel over anxious. You're going to feel depressed because you're not doing what you need to be doing. Everybody here was put here, right? Through reproduction, divinity, all that other type of stuff. We had a purpose. It was humanly, godly, everything that has to happen in order for us to get to this point, right? I don't believe anybody would be here if they didn't have a purpose behind them, if they didn't have a reason to be here. While you're here, you are supposed to be doing or living or talking. You're supposed to be executing on a certain thing, and that looks different for everybody. For men, that could look like us going after our bag. That could look like our disciplines. That could look like our purpose and stuff like that. But for the women, that could sometimes look like motherhood. Some women's purpose in life is to solely be the best mother that they can be. That was something that was passed down in their lineage, right? If you were to go back in certain people's generations and certain people's family history, they have a background of being healers. They have a background of being nurturers, of being the mothers. So when those qualities start showing in today's time, if you don't know yourself, you think you're just lazy, you think you're not ambitious, you think you're so many other things, when in reality you're just very in tune to your trajectory and who you actually are. And to tie this back into those periods of loneliness, right? When you're separated from the things that you necessarily thought made you, right? When you're separated from the things that you thought was so detrimental that it was just an end all be all, it forces you to look at yourself. It forces you to become more aware of yourself. When you don't have so many stimulants, when you don't have so many things pulling your attention and pulling your energy, it is so much easier for you to do the things that you know you need to do. It's so much easier for you to hear your own thoughts. It's so much easier for you to come into alignment with what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve. So I wouldn't view those periods of loneliness as anything bad. I would view it as an opportunity for you to gain the insight that you need to move forward, because everything's happening for a reason. The moment that you can come to a place of this is happening to me for a reason, you'll finally get to a level of courage to accept it and then move forward, because the acceptance always has to come before the moving forward. Now, the second part of this, right, is when pain starts to turn into your wisdom, right? For some reason, I think in this generation of people, in this generation of, their lives, we run from pain, right? We are so caught into this soft living, this path of least resistance and everything else, right? That, right? That we forget the main, principle of pain. Um, and I'm going to actually use this as an opportunity to bring up my grandpa, right? My grandpa put out a song called Pain, right? And crazy enough, that is one of the most sampled tracks ever. I'm not going to say ever, but From the first rap album, that is the most sampled track, Pain. And it's because it always connects with the younger people because it brings perspective that, life, you're going to have to go through something, right? If you were to accept your pain, you'll learn so much from it. You'll see so much that you were probably overlooking and weren't consciously aware of, right? Without a level of pain, you wouldn't be forced to look at yourself in certain seasons in the ways that you have to. Like, let's correlate this to heartbreak, right? When I went through my heartbreak, when I went through my very, like, just heart wrenching thing where I just couldn't wake up. I was stuck in bed. I was crying all day. I just couldn't move. Like, my days were stunted by the breakup, right? I would be around family, I'd be places, and I'd have to literally like separate myself from the room and just go sit outside and literally just be there in my thoughts, like really messed up, wondering what they were doing, wondering if I was ever gonna get a text back, just really effed up over the fact that I didn't have somebody in my life, right? What did that do? What did that pain cause out of me? Sitting in that amount of pain made me address my thoughts. Immediately, I started thinking, I don't want to feel like this. Whatever's going on, I don't want to feel like this. So, what do I need to do to not feel like this? And just that thought, just that question, let alone, caused me to start doing different things. I remember I went to a tarot reader one time and she had literally told me, you don't even need to be here because she like sensed this like spiritual like shield around me, something like that. And she literally just gave me game. She was like, you just need to kill your ego, and because you have everything, your spirit team is with you. And for a spiritual advisor to be saying that, somebody who's literally being paid to be feeding people what they need to be hearing, for her to say, I don't even want your money, you need to go down a different path, it let me know something. And that's kind of what triggered the spiritual aspects. Also, when I went up north to my papa and he gave me that ankh, it was like a whole spiritual ritual that happened. And that pain triggered the spiritual enlightenment that triggered all the self-awareness, all the emotional integrity, all the emotional intelligence, me actually picking up the books, me going to read the podcast, me focusing on my business. When I was in a relationship, I was dedicating so much energy to trying to fix what wasn't working, right? Trying to get this girl on the same page as me, trying to just do whatever the case may be, right? And I was wasting so much creative energy that the moment I separated from that woman, I noticed I got so much more creative. I got so much more ambitious. I got so much more disciplined. And it's not to say anything was wrong with the necessary woman, right? It was my attention, right? My attention wasn't on the things that was necessarily elevating my life. And having to go through that pain of having my reality shifted in a way where I felt emotionally uncontrollable, made me look at my life and be like, okay, wait a minute. If I need to at least control what I can control, what is in my control? And that was my business. That was reading the books. That was listening to the podcast. That was working out. That was truly doing the things that I needed to do to become a better version of myself. A lot of people like to go after goals, but then skip the part where they actually transform yourself. It's crazy. Yeah, a lot of goals can be hit fairly quick when you are the person you need to be to hit those goals. I'm gonna just be honest with you. If you're not the person that you need to be to in order to get to those goals, that process of getting to it is going to be delayed, and you're gonna be wondering like, why am I not getting there? You're gonna think there's a problem with the goal. No, 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 no. It's a problem with you. But going through that pain of not figuring it out, going through the pain of wanting something so bad and not getting it, sometimes may be what you needed in order to get it. Because it forces you to look at it. It forces you to ask the real questions. What's actually going on? Why hasn't this worked? What am I doing wrong? Is it something I need to do better? That's how that thing. So like pain is like, I feel like it's like a good thing. It's like a blessing. But oh my God, what's that saying? A blessing in disguise. It's a curse and a blessing, whatever the case may be. It always depends on how you look at it. Now, I'm actually kind of happy I touched on the breakup and stuff like that, because the third part of this episode, right, was talking about how most people aren't heartbroken; they're indisciplined with their energy. When you are just out here sleeping with everything, like, and I want to say the words that I truly want to say, but then social media, so you guys can fill up the gaps. But when you're out here just doing what you want and being free liberated freely with your body and, etc. You're going to get in a lot of instances where you think you're heartbroken. You're going to get in a lot of instances where you think somebody's doing you weird. You're going to get in a lot of instances where things don't feel right. That's not necessarily you being heartbroken. That's you not being self-aware. That's you not being disciplined. What do I mean by this? I think it's common sense to anybody who has access to the opposite gender, right? Now, the reason why I say this is because some people, they just weren't born with the genetic code, DNA, etc., to look a certain way. They didn't have the charisma. They didn't have whatever the case may be. So certain people actually do struggle in this area, right? Which it would make sense why they're undisciplined in that area, because anything that you feel as if you are lacking, anything that you feel you're getting in scarcity, you're typically not going to be disciplined with it because you're scared of you not getting it in the future. So when you do get it, you're going to overindulge in it, right? But once you've gotten to the point where you're securing yourself and you know that you can get a woman, you can get a man, you start to put standards, or you start to put kind of like regulations on who and why you're doing certain things, right? Because now it's no longer I just need to take what I can get. It's no, I need to be more selective with what I choose. That is a completely different energy. That is a completely different spirit. And when I was just out here just entertaining the BS, entertaining, it was basically lustful energy. When I was entertaining people who I knew wasn't for me, I was putting myself in situations that degraded and lowered my own levels of self-esteem. And then I portrayed, and then like I internalized it as I was heartbroken or I was going through something. Instead, I was just subjecting myself to situations that made me feel like that. And if I was to simply remove myself from those situations, I wouldn't feel like that anymore. That made me realize that a lot of things sometimes isn't a character flaw, it's a situational flaw, it's an environment flaw, which is why I bring these things up so much, because you can say something, you can be a certain way, you can act a certain way, you can have a certain style, you can dress a certain way. It doesn't matter around one group of people, and they can scone you for it. They can make you feel like this is the end of the world. It can make you feel like you're just going crazy, and that will make you doubt yourself. That will make you think you're heartbroken or you're going through something, until you took those same exact qualities to a different group, to a different perspective, to a different, just whatever the case may be, and you realize that it was accepted. You saw that there's perspective in everything. What one person isn't accepting, what one person isn't loving, some person cherishes it. Some person cherishes it. It. Jesus Christ. So that's why discipline in our interactions and with people is very important. We always think discipline comes out when it's time to work out, do our business, work on our content, stuff like that. Discipline shows in your discernment. Are you actually saying no to the things your spirit is telling you to say no to? On all levels. We can't mask this behind, especially with us, with our men, right? Us. We are using our biology as an excuse for the lack of spiritual discipline. A lot of times we get the answer, you shouldn't be doing this. Your attention needs to be over here. There's something else way more productive that you could be doing. Now, the human biology, our physical, our flesh, is pulling us to just act out of lust. Now, if you were to use your biology, fine. You're completely valid in everything that you're doing. Now, if you were to acknowledge that there's a mind, body, and spirit, once you stop cutting out that spirit, you start realizing how fucked up certain things are and how it's setting you back, and how a lot of the things that you're asking out of life and that you're asking from God could have been achieved, could have been manifested, could have been done if you simply were putting your energy and attention on the things that He was asking you for. You would have got what you wanted and probably surpassed it. You probably would have got more than that little 3 or 4 that you was giving your energy to, for the men and women. But we don't have that spiritual discipline to realize that we may be setting ourselves back. We may be messing up our own lives. That is some real stuff, y'all. I'm like choosing to film this in like the morning, so like it keeps getting like brighter and darker and stuff like that as I'm recording. So you guys are just gonna have to work with me on this episode. That's what, you feel me. You guys see the video going up and down and stuff like that. It's literally 7:30 in the morning. Okay, so this next chapter, right, is we're talking about the pressure to make it. Everybody does necessarily wants to win, but nobody talks about what losing does to your head, right? Wow. Okay. A lot of people don't accept the duality. And as somebody who Now, I haven't, I always say this, right? I've been exposed to a good amount for my age, right? Because of the lineage and because of the hustle and just just the way that things been playing out in my life, right? I was exposed. But I'm not at the point where it's like, okay, I'm set, I'm hella rich, I'm still driving a Nissan. You feel me? I haven't upgraded to the Porsches and all other type of stuff. We may get there, we will get there, but that's not where we're at, right? So I can acknowledge that there's different levels to this, right? There's different levels to whatever you're doing, right? I've had invoices, I get contracts that could pay off bills in spurts, right? I remember when there was a time where I was scraping up the quarters on my windowsill so I can go to the store and get my daily bag of chips because I didn't have enough money to afford an actual meal every day, right? The things that were stressing me out when I was dirt poor is still the things that stress me out while I'm making money. The stress never changed. The only thing that changed was my ability to handle said stress. Back then, adversity A popped up. Oh my God, it was the end of the world. I'm going back to sleep. Fuck all of this. Now, adversity A pops up. It's like, well, I've just seen this like 15, 20, 100 times now. I didn't went through every emotion with it. Like I've been psyched myself out when it didn't happen. I didn't got happy when it didn't happen. I didn't got sad when it happened. I didn't just sat in it when it happened. I didn't went through everything. I'm. This isn't even something I need to react to at this point. I'm just going to let it ride out. That it's people view success as once you get there, everything stops, and that's not the case. Like, for instance, I finally took the leap to be like, okay, I kind of want to transition out of the service based models, right? And I kind of want to get in more into the retail, into the, more like just really like ownership positions, right? Even though you can do that inside of a service based business, things like product, well, like gardening, photography, all that other type of stuff, right? But the product side of things, the retail side of things, you selling merch, you selling books, you selling, I don't know. It could even be food. When I started transitioning into that and I started making more content and stuff like that, right? I was noticing, okay, I'm in situations where I'm getting random ass parking tickets. I got $1,000 parking ticket like a week ago. And then last night I decided to go to the beach at like 7, like 8 o'clock at night to go run on the beach. Soon as I get back to the car, I see somebody literally putting a ticket on my car because I parked the wrong way. I didn't go facing forward. I backed in. Right? The money's going to continuously go up. The stress levels never leave. Back then, when I wasn't making any money, a $60, $1,000 parking ticket would have been like, what the fuck? I'm screwed. Now it's like, oh my God, I have to pay $1,000 parking ticket. But at least I know I have it in me to get a little bit further. At least I know I have it in me to possibly make that extra little $1,000 to just cover that off. Your reactions just change. And the quicker that you can accept that adversity is going to happen, the quicker that you can accept that pain, heartbreak, adversities, and all these type of things is just a natural part of the game, the faster you're going to get to the point where you're able to look at it from an objective standpoint and make wiser decisions. You're going to be able to dissect it a little bit better, make wiser decisions. And so don't beat yourself up in the process. Always give yourself a level of grace because you're going to hit your head. Like I need you to like really understand this. When you're going for goals or you're going for anything big, anything important to you, you're going to hit your head so many times. I just like I'm starting to lose confidence. But the process of you hitting your head and losing confidence in the moments, it's giving you the courage to recognize patterns. Like if you continuously keep hitting your head, at a certain point, you're going to see the wave of, okay, when I do this, this happens. I probably need to just sit this out. Okay, when I do this, I get this. Let me do more of this. You're able to literally see it. But if you're just beating yourself down into the ground and you never take yourself out of the situation to look, it's going to eat you up. You're never going to think you're progressing because, man, I literally, like, I mean this in the realest way. The problems never change. The millionaire still has to worry about their rent or their bills. The same way that the person in Section 8 is worrying about their bills. The only difference is that that person's bills is a lot higher than that person's bills. The stress never went anywhere. That person just knows how to deal with a lot more. That's it. Hey, now the fifth part of this video is healing isn't pretty. It is kind of crazy because in these notes, it's talking about how healing doesn't look like the crystals and the journaling and all that type of stuff. It's the nights you can't even look at yourself, right? That, when I was very first healing, it was a lot of journaling. It was a lot of crying. It was all that other type of stuff, right? Recently, I feel like I've been closing out the healing period, and it's been more of me looking at myself and seeing me mess up. Healing to me, at least where I'm at in my path, is acknowledging I'm going to mess up. I'm about to make mistakes. Like I'm seeing myself mess up and acknowledging from a higher perspective that it's human. I can't do any. I can only do so much about it. I can't prevent every mistake. I can't, right every wrong. And giving myself grace. The moment I was giving myself grace behind my mistakes, it gave me the peace of mind to actually do something different. But all the times where I was sitting there like, oh my God, this is a mistake. Why am I doing this? Who made me think like this? Or oh, I'm pointing the finger and all this other type of stuff. It was just like the healing wasn't happening. Nothing was progressing. Nothing was actually like moving. It got to the point when the healing process started to make the most sense the moment I got to the point where I was like, this feels effed up. I probably deserve this though. Okay. Well, if I don't want this to happen again, I probably need to react to this differently because, yeah, no, I'm just not fond of this. It's like self awareness is this beautiful thing. It's this really beautiful thing. And it's not this gut wrenching, heart aching thing that a lot of people play it out to be. Because initially it's going to feel like that because your emotions is involved. But like I said about that adversity thing, once you can get your emotions out of it and you see yourself, you make good decisions, you make bad decisions, you make good decisions, you make bad decisions, you make good decisions, you make bad decisions. You don't base your value or your self-esteem off those high points. You base it kind of on that middle, that middle frequency where you're like, okay, I made a good decision right here. I fucked up right here. I'm bound to make another good decision and I'm bound to make another bad decision. So let me just learn. Let me just grow. Let me just evolve. Let me give myself grace. That is the best way to heal. That is like because it's just so rejuvenating. You want your healing should be rejuvenating. Your healing should not be sending you deeper into the dirt. I'm sorry. It shouldn't. Oh, no, I actually like this chapter because this one I'm correlating it to, the business of being yourself. Me, when I got into photography, content creation, editing, etc. I say this in a lot of my videos and a lot of my content, right? I started editing while I was a kid, right? I was playing Call of Duty. I saw other people making Call of Duty videos, and I was like, okay, I want to make Call of Duty videos as well, but I want to have it in like a montage with music and all this other type of stuff, right? So I picked up, you know, YouTube and I started looking up how to download the cracked versions of Adobe, After Effects and all this other type of stuff. And I started content creation. And I didn't necessarily realize that's what I was doing, but dog, I was creating content since a youngin. So when I grew up and, life started hitting and, bills, responsibilities, other people's opinions and stuff started to enter the equation, I remembered that I had something true to myself. I at least heard it or saw it, people were getting paid from, picking up the camera, doing music videos, whatever the case may be. So it's like, okay, why not give this a shot? I started my gaming channel. Like I really gave it a shot. And later on in life, now, I'm only 22, so we're still very early in this process, right? Um, we still have a lot of evolution. We still have a lot of growth and we still have a lot of, pushing just to do. But now that I've gotten into this point in my life where I've then gotten, larger checks, like I've then gotten checks upwards, yeah, like into the four-figure range, just for like a singular like project or edit or something like that. And it doesn't really take that long. And I remember when I very first started and I was selling edits, I remember I still had the Google Docs sheet and it's labeled 2017, where I was like, I will edit your videos for $5 and I will teach you how to edit for $20. Fast forward, I went to a film school for visual effects and animation, I'm in over $100,000 in student loan debt now, which is fucking stupid. I really did it. Don't do that. Learn from my mistake. But it's just the principle. I've saw something that I loved and that I was passionate about as a kid and took the risk on it sooner than later. That's usually the main thing that a lot of people need to get to. A lot of people kind of know what they wanted to do since they were a child. A lot of people aren't going full force in it and making it a reality. And to be in a position now where I'm transitioning into content creation and the business and art, somewhat monetizing my intellect and my charisma and my perspective has really shown me that there's possibilities beyond this world. You can literally get paid for literally being yourself in the fullest form, like in every chakra inside of you. You can align and you can make that a pool of income for you. All of your creativity, all of your interest, it can all pay you. And growing up, I didn't see that. I didn't realize that was a possibility or that was a reality for a lot of people, right? And why didn't I realize that that was a reality for a lot of people? Because I grew up in a household where that wasn't necessarily what was happening. People were going to work, people were working their ass off at that, and we still didn't have enough money to go overly ball out. So I wasn't conditioned to see the entrepreneurial side of it, right? But I was, like I said early in the video, I was exposed to it later on in life, like 19, 20 years old. Like, this is all still new to me, but I've got, so much more confident and further in the process. Yeah, when it comes to this section, I really just want you guys to believe in yourself, because I know it's a process. It's difficult. There's going to be parts where you're doing what you know you're supposed to be doing. You're doing what you love, and it's still not working. Don't view those periods as you're not doing the right thing or you're misaligned, because I remember when I very first picked up my camera, it looked like me walking around the streets not getting paid until I was getting paid. Until that me walking around the streets strengthened my eyes so much that a singular payment could pay my bills. It wasn't that I was doing anything wrong because I wasn't seeing the results. I wasn't ready. It wasn't time yet. And I had to put in the discipline. I had to put in the hours to make it happen. And that's why I I really tried to push peace on your path, because things is going to be happening that's out of your control. But if you can stay, if your inner compass can stay in tune, if it can stay morally, ethically, and lovingly centered, you'll be able to flow through the natural adversities of life, because these things happen by nature, especially when you're shooting for things in an anomaly position. If you're trying to be the next musician, if you're trying to be the next content creator, if you're trying to be the next business owner. I was watching this thing with Alex Hormozy, and I believe he said only 9% of the people in the world actually have businesses. And about, well, like 10% of those people in that 9% is over the $100 million mark, or even over the $1 million mark at that. So we have to actually realize that not a lot of people are getting to that chili bop. So if you're actually trying to do that, you got to give yourself grace, because there's going to be an extensive amount of adversities. Because if it wasn't, it would be more people financially liberated than suffering. But that's not the case. So you have to accept that sooner than later. And the sooner you can accept it and you stop judging your value and your worth and your perspective on who you are on that, the sooner you may actually get it. Because your self-esteem isn't going to keep getting shot down to the point where you don't want to do it anymore. And I also want to make this very clear for my people out there. You cannot grow in an environment where people are benefiting from your stagnation. If you being stagnant, if you not believing in yourself, if you taking the slow route, if you let me move my seat down, I'm sorry. If you taking the slow route and not being yourself is helping their situation, why in the fuck would they want you to do anything different? Why would they want you to go down a different route when you staying exactly where you are helps them? That looks like the crab in the bucket mentality. Not realizing that if you probably would have let the crab out, you probably could have helped another one. But then even then, I heard that there's this perspective crabs aren't even supposed to be in a bucket in the first place. So everybody's looking at the crab that's getting out, looking at him as the bad guy or trying to get on instead of looking at the bigger picture that we're all crabs inside of a bucket. Man, that looked so interesting for me because the moment I started progressing with my camera skills, I started getting better at what I do. I started the quality and stuff started to go up and everything. I noticed I had a lot more cousins. I noticed there was a lot more people popping into my life who had passions, who all of a sudden did music, did content, did something, had a business, something, all of a sudden. And the loving me, based upon my perspective of especially family and friends, right? Before I introduced my passions and money and business, it was cool. But once I did it afterwards, it was like, oh, wait a minute. Wait. You guys are using me. You guys are being entitled. You guys are expecting certain things from me. You're not realizing how much of an energy investment this actually is. you know, when you're just friends, you with your family and all that sort of type of stuff, you can just sit there, cool it, waste hours, you like literally like just not do anything productive. So in a way, you get what I'm saying because you're just friends. There's no expectation of anything in that interaction. But the moment you align any type of money, business, or anything like that, there's going to be an underlying set of expectations. And if you mix those expectations, if you mix business expectations with family, love, friends, etc., it's probably not going to work because business typically starts to come down to a black and white. And that black and white exit out all emotions. You can't exit out emotions in a relationship that was built off of emotions. The emotions is going to stir up at some point, and then it's going to cause friction inside of the business. It's going to cause friction in whatever you're trying to do. Well, it can even be something that's not paying you yet. Let's say you're trying to get into music. If you start bringing in too many people that you quote unquote mess with around your music is going to be diluted by the people around you because it's not true to you. It's kind of crazy when we start touching on these things because we view friendship as this thing that we're supposed to have a whole lot of them. They're everywhere. But it's like I genuinely don't believe that. I believe you have a couple real friends in this lifetime, and that's because they were truly aligned to you, right? Everybody else, these were just interactions. These were just people that we came across on this life journey that needed to teach us a lesson, needed to teach them a lesson, needed to give them a perspective, some love, a hug, a conversation. I don't know. But we hold too many attachments to things. We hold too many attachments to this worldly experience instead of falling into our divine flow, falling into our divine orchestration, falling into the things that we know we need to be doing in life. It's actually kind of wicked. Is wicked, 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 wicked work. And I felt that survivor's guilt. I'm not gonna lie. I felt the pain of like I've even went through it recently. Like having people I really care about like make comments where it's like, oh whoa, you're pocket watching. You don't even know how much I have or don't have, but you're watching it. Like, why do you feel entitled to it without even knowing what's going on? Just is it the energy? And that's what I started realizing too. Sometimes I think people want your energy. I don't even think it has something to do with money sometimes. If you are a high vibrational person, if you are a high vibrational being, if you still have that spark, that light in you, you get around an environment or some people who don't have it or they're losing it, they gonna want it. They gonna want that energy. So whatever you're doing to pour into you that's making you look the way that you're looking, they want you to pour that into them so they can get some of that. But in the process of you doing that, what do you have? Your ability to keep giving to the people goes down because it's not really coming back to you. Survivor's guilt is a real thing. And it's going to come from the ones that you cared about the most. You don't have survivor's guilt about people you don't give a fuck about. You don't have survivor's guilt about the homeless person that you see walking down the street. Be real with yourself. You have survivor's guilt about the homeboys you had to leave behind, about the homegirls you had to leave behind, about the family you had to leave behind, about the ex-lovers and shit you had to leave behind. Those are the people that spark guilt in you. It's very hard for somebody that you don't know and that you never built an emotional connection to make you feel shameful or guilty about some shit. It's like, nigga, I don't care. Who are you? It's always the people closest to you. And that's why I say always, okay, be mindful of your counsel, right? Be mindful of the people that you have around you. But then I also say root yourself in self first. Root yourself from the very get-go, right? Because that's going to prevent a lot of different things, because you can never predict, judge, or rule over another human being and their interactions and how they choose to express and live out through that moment. They can say the truth. They can choose to do the wildest shit ever. It's not in your control. So the best thing for you to do is align yourself so when these things do happen, because it's bound to happen, people are bound to act out of character, but people are bound to make you feel a type of way, project onto you, try getting under your skin. All of these type of things are real. They're bound to happen. At least when they do happen, it doesn't make you go crazy. You can acknowledge that this is an experience or this is a projection or, this could possibly be a sign if that's something that you believe in, whatever the case may be. But at least you're at the point where the outside isn't messing you up to the point where you can't keep walking forward. The main objective in this is you got to keep walking forward. Anything that's making you stagnate, where you can't walk forward, you got to get it loose. And it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt like a bitch. But you got to do what you got to do sometimes. I actually love the tone that I've been having during this video with you guys, right? Because I've been implementing a lot of business principles in this video, right? If you guys have been listening and catching the little gems, these are a lot of things that I'm gaming up the new entrepreneurs. I'm gaming up, the new ambitious people, the new creatives. And something that I want to touch on is purpose and legacy, right? Now, the term legacy is, misconstrued a lot of the times, right? And my grandpa gave me a very, very clear example of this, right? He's from the Watts Prophets. So his legacy, right, was, well, not even was, but is, putting out the first rap album in 1969. And all of the work and societal things that he was doing, for as a Pan-Africanist, and in the communities, raising these rappers, literally coaching up DJ Quick from like literally the foundational roots of the rap and hip hop industry. He was, the backbone, the intellect behind all of it, right? And now he put out that album when I believe he was like 27 or something like that, right? Now he's 85, 86, and he's still doing the same things, right? I still catch him with his journal in his hand, writing down some raps, writing down some poetry. I still catch him, like the habits never changed, still wanted to go out and eat lunch at these fancy restaurants and stuff like that. Like the lifestyle never changed. I still see him going to these events, these community events, literally where it's like you're not getting paid for a single thing. They're just using your likeness. But he's still doing it off the strength and love for the community. I've seen what legacy is. And crazy, when I've had these conversations with him, he kind of gets a little bit upset when people talk about legacy, because he's like, everybody's trying to make their destiny, make this legacy or something like that. Your legacy is simply what you did during your life. What did you choose to do? How did you spend your time? How did you live? That's your legacy. It's not all these great grand moves, these great schemes, becoming the best of the best and all this other type of stuff. Your legacy is simply, how did you spend your time? If you were somebody who sat there and played soccer every single day for hours on end, that was your legacy. Now, it may not be this grand, ultra stellar statusful, legacy, but that's what it was. Because that's what you love to do. So that's what you did. And it correlates to so many different areas in life. So when you start looking long term, when you start looking at things from a bird's eye view, there's these beautiful birds passing by my car window right now, which just gave me, that bird's eye view analogy. When you're looking at things from a bird's eye view, you exit out so many unnecessary things. And especially in the time of social media, it's easy to get caught into that loop of unnecessary. But when you're actually focused on, okay, long term, where am I trying to get to? What am I trying to do? What is the impact I'm trying to create? What is everything, that's up there spiritually, and how can I bring those things down? You stop giving your attention and your time to the things outside of that purpose. It can be jobs, it can be endeavors, it can be people sometimes, it can be a lot of different things. But the moment you can see it from a bird's eye perspective, your legacy is how did you spend your time. You don't want certain things on your name. You don't want to be known as the person who spent their life just sleeping with everybody, just not having no levels of self-respect, not having no levels of, integrity, just anything. You're just going, getting passports, going to different countries and stuff like that. And that's what you're going to be known for. That was your legacy. And it's depending on the person that you're talking to, that's probably not going to be a good legacy. So, yeah, really pay attention to how you're living your life. Certain things is okay. If it's true to you, do it, because that's your legacy. But don't try creating a legacy by doing things that's not true to you because you want the status of what you think a legacy is. Because it's not the things on the billboards and shit. It's not the people with. Everybody has a legacy. Every single person, whether you got rich, whether you were poor, whether you were in the public eye, whether you were under the freeway, that was your legacy. It's kind of what you chose too. Crazy enough. So I want to close this video out. Basically, just grounding the energy, talking about gratitude, talking about love, talking about appreciation. Fix the camera, man. We on the run with this one. We about to go out here. I woke up super duper early today. By like 4. It's like 7, about to be 8. Yes, 8 o'clock actually right now. Still foggy outside. Gonna probably knock out some content when I can. Outside, but it's showing me too that when I was valuing myself based upon my content and my likes and all this other type of stuff, it was holding me back. It was making me doubt myself in situations where I had no business doubting myself. It was making me not appreciate the things that was so beautiful. Having a level of gratitude allows you to slow down because you see how much you actually do have, and you see less of the rush or the need to rush to gain something that you seemingly already have. You get the perspective that I'm touching on when you are thankful for something and you acknowledge it for what it is. That anxious pull telling you you need to get it because you're lacking it subsides. That's, let's say, like hypothetically, right? Let's say we're talking about money. If you're sitting here stressing about $100, you're $100 short or whatever the case may be, and you're letting that number, that in that situation, dictate your being, your manlyhood, your womanhood, because you're falling short, not knowing that in a couple years you are going to have millions sitting in the bank. You wouldn't have let that situation dictate how you actually felt about yourself. You just would have viewed it as a situation that's just like, damn, well, okay, well, shit. You get what I'm saying? Like it wouldn't have been, you know, this crazy thing, because you accept it. You had gratitude to know I already have it. It's within me. The things that I'm at, the things that create wealth is within us. I don't need to go out here and overexert myself for the bag, work these crazy hours. I just need to bring what's out, or I need to bring what's in out. That's how, like, people be quantum leaping and all this other type of stuff, man. It's a spiritual practice, and it all starts with a level of gratitude, because it's going to be very hard for you to have gratitude for anything outside of you when you don't have gratitude for what's inside. The moment you can be like, dang, I have a pretty smart brain. Dang, I know a good amount about X subject, about X thing. I'm pretty good at doing this, that. I'm pretty good at feeling a certain, whatever the case may be. Once you get to that point and you can acknowledge it within you, you can bring it outwards. You start applying it. Once you can acknowledge you're smart, you'll start applying that brain and making you some chili. You'll start applying that brain and fixing some situations, bringing solutions to some things happening in your life. But if you're oblivious to your own power within, you're not gonna have the courage to fix anything outside of you. It's so much easier to take action, fix something, find a solution, be who you want to be when you know who you are. So, with that being said, I love you guys. I love you guys. I love you guys. This has been somewhat of a long video, and I love that. You know, I love these long talks. I'm gonna edit this down. I'm probably gonna make another podcast. So if you guys see me wearing the exact same outfit again in another video, but I'm like outside sitting on the stool and stuff like that, bear with me. You know, I'm cranking these things out. But yeah, with that being said, I love you guys. I love you guys. I love you guys. And I will see y'all in the next video. Peace.